Welcome back to our podcast here. You have Elijah alongside G. We're gonna get into another episode here, another Lions draft heavy focus episode. We're keying in on the defensive ends, edge rushers this time around. Uh, you know, Reoccurring theme here. We should focus on the defense, try to get that up to a top 10, top five level. We're near the back of the pack here. I would say we both agree we should level up across the board on as many positions as we possibly can. Obviously, we have a decent amount of young premier edge rushers now. One of them being a defensive player, rookie defensive player of the year, in Adrian Hutchinson. Phenomenal season. I think you might correct me if I'm wrong, but like 9, 10 sacks, 3 picks. Led all rookies in both sacks and picks. That's the first time that's happened, I think, since I'm sorry, I forget the guy's name, but some dude from the mid '90s. So it's a pretty big feat, and so it's building upon that. Uh, Pascal, Houston. We got a lot of good young guys on defensive line, but I think we both agree that we should try to level up there. And there probably is going to be a couple good dudes sitting there, a couple studs, if you will, sitting there at 6, 18. So I'm gonna throw it over to you first. Who do you kind of want to key in on? Who are you willing to take at 6, if anybody, 18? But how you kind of dream scenario? Who you want to get?
Right now, I'm plotting on how we can somehow create a rumor for Will Anderson to drop to 6.
Yeah, bro.
Somehow fix, throw out something about him having character issues or something to where, they might not want to take a stab at him. But
Who's my man that had the bong hit? Who's my man that had the bong hit?
Laramie Tunsil, that was, man, horrible. Horrible when that happened. But yeah, I think, overall, I feel like best defensive end in this draft. I'm probably going top 3, maybe top 5, just kind of depending on, team needs and such, or like, within that top 5. But I think Will Anderson, that's just, he was ready as a sophomore. I think that's one that, I'd hope that, if we had the opportunity to, I'll be honest, I'd be okay with us trading a couple picks to like make that move. I think I just, going back to what I've said the last couple of weeks, as far as when it comes to D line, you look at a lot of these teams, and how these teams in the playoffs, these championship type teams, they end up having multiple players, on that D line, and they'll be, switching them in and out, every play. Obviously some guys will, be more productive on third down than first and second down, so on and so forth. But which I think is why it's important that, we need to create that depth. So I think, Will Anderson, that's definitely somebody that, I would not, we had to, give up some draft capital here and there, make a little bit of moves. It's all, as long as it's, smart, and we're not just, shipping off, so many picks to get him. I think that is somebody that we definitely should look at. Second guy that, I think would be a good fit for the Lions. I brought him up last week. I saw him put a little DM. I think he's more of an edge rusher, D line, like within college, but I think he is more of an edge rusher, more labeled as an edge rusher, is Miles Murphy. One of these guys, Clemson, I feel like they've always, last few years, have always done a good job of having some really solid defensive ends. They got that pedigree for sure. I think dating back to like 2018, they had like 4 or 5 drafted in the top 10 at one point. Where he's come from, he's been described as like a freak of nature, really just really good disruptor, really good pass rusher. I feel like somebody, as long, I won't say as long as testing goes well. I'm sure he'll test, very well, just kind of based off what I've been reading and seeing about him so far. I think it's another guy just from like a depth standpoint, right? Somebody that can, take the pressure off of Hutchinson and be out there, a little longer, more downs than a Houston. I think James Houston, we've shown him more like them third and long packages, second and long packages, be kind of like a good weapon from like a pass rush standpoint. But it seems like, Miles Murphy can be that guy that can be in and play all 3 to 4 downs and just really like set the edge and, kind of be that, that guy for the other guy on the other side of Hutchinson. And the third guy, that I think will be a great fit just within our defense is Tyree Wilson. I feel like, what I watched on him was I don't think he got a ton of sacks, but he is just you like them guys have like that high motor, right?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes like obviously as we statistics start to kind of become more and more prominent and the pass rush grades, this, that, and the third. He had a pretty good like rushing grade of just like creating pressure, and I think it just comes down to like if we're able to get in quarterbacks' faces, from an interior standpoint and from an edge standpoint, we're gonna that'll just help the defense overall as a whole. So all these guys, I feel like, they, sacks are one thing, but they've all shown just what I've seen from a highlight standpoint that they just, you know,
Like,
this
and it's
will
just from
get
things.
to the quarterback. Yeah, just blow shit up, get to the quarterback, take advantage of them. When they got tight ends trying to chip you, pushing the running back into the quarterback's lap, all those types of things. So I think that those three guys are for sure. I'd be okay with us looking at them um, at that six number if we can at the sixth number, or if we can move up and potentially grab a Will Anderson. I'd be ecstatic with that.
Yeah. So, I think you probably agree with this, but I second everything you said about Will Anderson. I think you would agree with this. Um, Jalen Carter and Will Anderson, I would say, are the two my top two on the board for the Lions. Of who
Top
we
dogs.
should get, who we should try to get, and I think there's a decent to pretty good chance that one of them are sitting there, or like you said, maybe right in front of us. One of them are off the board, one of them quarterbacks are off the board, and we have an opportunity to move up to four, move up to out of five doesn't make sense, but something like that. If we could do that, I agree. Those are the two guys I believe I'd be willing to give up draft capital for, depending on what that package looks like. Because those
Right.
guys, I think, are the biggest difference makers and would solidify you as the best young core of defensive line in the NFL, with lots of room to grow, with multiple like staples. Hutch is a staple. Jalen Carter would be a staple. Will Anderson would be a staple. Those are
Yep.
and then you start working in the guys who, like you said, are maybe a bit of a more pass rush specialist, Houston, or other free agent that we pick up, or something like Pascal, things of that nature. Where I think if you have those guys on the edge, it would be, or any of those guys in the combination, it would be so hard to defend and scheme against because those are,
Mhm.
are just disruptors. So I agree with everything you said on that. I'm not gonna. So Will Anderson is just a freak. That's the best way to explain it. I have no doubt that he'll be a phenomenal NFL player, multiple time Pro Bowler for the next 8 to 10 years.
He was ready last year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. Yeah, fill in the blank for Chase Young, Hutch.
Mhm.
He's in that streamline of going to come in the NFL and get to work.
Yep.
So I agree. And another guy I have that I mirror with you, so I won't talk on him too much, would be Tyree Wilson. Texas Tech. I wrote down he had 8 sacks. Big dude, 6'6", 275. In that Hutchinson size world as well. Just a big freak physical. And I wrote down I think he had a broke foot at some point in this year, so he kind of shut it down, got that fixed. They said he went ahead and got surgery, rehab that, so he should be ready to go, I imagine, for most combine things, and to really get a full view on what he's about. The only guy that I wrote differential, and I don't know if this is necessarily a 6 guy, but maybe more of that 18 range. If he's sitting there, but that's and I'm hoping I'm saying his last name correctly, but a Notre Dame grad, that's Isaiah Frosky. I watched a lot of tape on him. 12 sacks this year, forced fumble, 35 pass pressures, and he holds the Notre Dame all-time sack record.
Hmm.
So I think that's
That
obviously,
production.
yeah, production for multiple years, able to get to the quarterback for 4 straight years there.
Yep.
Um, Playing a combo of Big Ten, ACC, some big boys throughout. They've had pretty solid teams there the last couple of years as well. So I think in general, well, maybe not this year, but in general, they're putting together another team that, like you said, similar to Clemson, just a factory
Always
when it
got
comes.
nice defensive
Yeah,
players.
yep,
Always
yep.
do. Front
So
seven's
he
always solid.
stood out to me. And then yeah, so those are the couple of guys I have on there. Everybody else I have would be more of that, maybe that we come back around, hopefully, because I can't, maybe we won't, seeing how we got Hutch last year, the production Houston had, potentially I could see us going a different way with that 6 pick. That might be a bit of a stream to double down again. Not that it would be wrong. I think you take the best available player and
Right.
figure it out. But So that's why I kind of think maybe that like 48, 55 range, some players that'd be in there is where I kind of had the bulk of my guys. But yeah, those are the guys I think somewhere in that 6-18. Definitely Will Anderson. I would give up that 48 or that 55 probably to move up to get him. I think he would be
100%.
he's that much of a difference maker, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think no, you hit it right on the head. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of talent just within that, the class overall, especially like that should be going in that top 10. But man, if we could, I mean, that's a guy. I mean, I think a lot of these guys make their defense great from day one, but that's a guy I know for a fact. He would take our like, bottom tier ranked defense and immediately make us a mid 20s, top 15
Yeah.
defense.
I mean,
Just
what are you doing? What are you doing if you're an average anybody? And you got Hutch on one side, Will Anderson on the other side. Who you sending that extra blocker to?
yeah,
Who do you want to tee off on your quarterback this time? It
right,
really would be that tough of a decision. And as they come into their own in mode, it would be impossible to block.
right.
And yeah, so that I agree with you. That would be top tier and would
Ideal.
catapult our defense to. And like I said last week, if nothing else, we would put fear of God in the quarterback every single week.
Right.
Yeah.
1,000%. Yeah. Yeah. I just think what we'll do now is go into the second tier.
Mhm.
This is just guys that I just think, probably be available in that, um, you know, probably the 18th pick. So start off, I think one guy that we definitely should take a close look at, Nolan Smith. I've heard him potentially being a better Trevon Walker.
Mhm.
So I mean, take how you look comparing Javon Walker to Aiden Hutchinson, just what that looks like, and um, I mean, I ain't mad at that. I would definitely be, mid round. You know, wouldn't hate it if we took a couple of DNs. Just being honest with you, like where you can move these guys around on the line and everything. Like, but I've heard some good things about Nolan Smith. The only thing was he didn't really play this year. Actually had like a biceps injury, so actually was like out of the season, out early in the season. I think he only played like 5 or 6 games. That don't scare me as much as like a knee or like a like a ligament type issue.
Right.
It sounds like he was able to recover from that pretty quickly. It should be good to go when that time comes. We went to Georgia. I mean, they had the best defense, back-to-back national championships. We know what they're doing down there. So I wouldn't mind taking a look at him. I'd say the next guy I'm gonna talk about is probably my favorite guy, but like I don't think he'd be a top 10 overall pick just because he is. I think he was like a former receiver in FCS at one point, Jared Verse. Um, I think I'm getting that correct. I think he played receiver like his freshman year, ended up making the switch to like defensive end when he was still in FCS, playing in Albany, University of New York.
Yeah, I didn't know
Um,
that. That's great.
yeah, yeah. So he's one of them guys, he's like, so you already know, gonna be twitchy, quicker, just kind of have like a different burst that you would see from your average DN just because he played. I'm pretty sure he played a different position for a good part of his college career. But I actually saw him like live, like Labor Day weekend. It was LSU versus Florida State. And he had 2 sacks in that game. Just really was like disruptive. I mean, that's LSU. He had them offensive tackles. He was giving them a lot of issues because not only did he have 2 sacks, that into all the pressures he had. I mean, there was definitely a couple different plays where he was, that close to getting another sack. And he just has that. I just saw that motor like going, and I'm able to watch him play a couple different times. He's a little banged up with ankle injury, so he played like I think they said only played like 350 snaps last year, but he graded better in the FBS, like from Florida State from like a player grade standpoint than he did when he was playing FCS against lesser competition. So that just shows there's something there.
Yeah.
And I think that if he's hovering around the 18 spot, regardless of if we even do take a D end, top, in that 6th pick, I think I look close at just seeing like, all right, like this guy just has this something about him. I think that it never hurts to have a couple of them guys on your team.
Yeah.
And the last guy that I think would just be, in that realm, we maybe look at in the mid to late first round, is Luke Van Ness. He's from Iowa. And, Big Ten, we're Big Ten homers. Iowa, they do defense really well. They don't really do a whole lot on offense very well. But you're always going to see Iowa. They're always going to be sound defense. They've actually had a couple different DNs come out recently, last like 5 to 7 years, and played pretty well. I just feel like what I saw from him was just a very technical defensive end, disruptor, and I don't think you could ever go wrong with a guy like that. I think he's redshirt sophomore, so he's pretty young as well. Still got some room to develop. But I mean, I'm anybody out of the Big Ten with a solid defense. I'll never be mad at the Lions taking a stab at a player like that. So yeah, those are my three guys. I think would be something that we can maybe look at the 18th pick.
Yeah, no. So yeah, no, I'm not mad at any of them. I love the Big Ten guys. I think, we know what the Big Ten produces. You're going up against, you know, NFL linemen game in and game out. If you're getting production, that's meaningful. No, so I
Right.
agree with you on that. No, so I second you with Nolan Smith. Um, like you said, the pedigree from that university. Just you watch his game type. He's fast. He has burst off the line of scrimmage. He's blowing past these offensive linemen,
Mhm.
and so I think I love to see that in the defensive line, the defensive end. As far as like if you just have that quick twitchiness about you, I think that you can't coach that. That's something that's instinct. That's something I think he does very well. Just watching a lot of these guys, you know, not that Will Anderson slow or anything by no means, but he's much more physical. You
Right.
watch somebody like that, they're more grabbing the offensive lineman and taking them
Mhm.
with them along the ride versus blowing right past them. So I think different, more than one way to skin a cat. But that's something I noticed by him, and I had him on my list as well. Next guy, this is what I thought you were going with. You said a guy that moved from offensive side of the ball on over, but his name is Keon White. Plays at Georgia Tech.
Hmm.
I think he'll be there in that. I just looked at a couple mock drafts today. He's at like 29. Seen him at like 36. So I think he'll be very good. Definitely probably be there at 18. Very good possibility he'll be depending on how some things go, sitting there maybe for us at 48. But former tight end, played a tight end at Old Dominion, transferred, ended up at Georgia Tech. 41 hurries or pressures, I should say. 7 sacks. He's a bigger dude. He's 6'4", 275. So quite stocky, but I think you see a long pedigree of just athletic defensive ends, former tight ends, basketball players. That seems to all kind of intertwined for those
Hand-eye
tight ends,
coordination.
defensive ends. Yeah, so I think looking at that and just uh, being able to produce at a high level in West Georgia in the ACC, produce at a high level, transferring up a division as far as level of competition, changing side of the ball, and then coming out with 7 sacks. I think that
Impressive.
yeah, it's impressive, and I think he's definitely going to probably test very well, seeing how he's just athletic. If you can move sides of the ball that seamlessly, you like you said, good hand eye coordination, and clearly he's good with just like his body, because those are although they're typically built the same, two completely different skill sets. And if you were a solid tight end, it can transfer on over. I think I feel pretty good about that. Yeah, no, so those are a couple of guys I had. And then the last dude I have is just a big sleeper. I watched a couple of sleeper videos and he popped up. But I'll let you go first if you have anybody else.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think I'm going here to my third tier. And this is guys that I think might be available at that 48th pick, 55th pick. Yeah, pick in the 30s as well, right?
I
33.
Yeah, I might have missed that one.
Okay, I'm not sure off the top of the head, but either way, these guys I think they'll be available second round, maybe later, like early second round, mid and late second round. One guy I start off with is BJ Ojulari from LSU. He has a brother in the NFL that plays for the Giants, so I'm always a fan of just like players that kind of understand what that process looks like. They will have people in their corner that understand what all this looks like with it. Just as far as making that transition to the NFL, and he balled out at LSU. He wasn't like a crazy standout or anything like some of these other guys are, but SEC, SEC talent, playing for one of the best schools in the SEC. Definitely saw a lot of that. A lot of stuff. I like a lot of what I saw from him. this season, just from some of the highlights and such that I watched. Um, Next guy is going to be Will McDonald the fourth from Iowa State. So first, I kind of heard people just kind of talk about Iowa State as kind of being almost um, like a poor man's Michigan, just kind of how they play. They have like a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of impressive like D line play, use a lot of tight ends, just from like kind of like how they're built. Will McDonald's one of those like newer age like defensive ends that was almost like more like an outside linebacker. But one thing I read about him that impressed me was that they essentially had him playing like the third guy with like a hand in the dirt in a 3-4, and he was able to. So essentially, he was playing
Yeah.
a position of a guy that's like 6'4", like 280, at like 6'4", like 240. Still was just
Impressive. Yeah.
super productive. Still had still made a great presence. It was just like able to still just play really well. And like I said, overall, just heard really good things about him. And Iowa State, they seem to be able to get out a couple solid guys every now and then. The last guy that I think will be a solid player for Lions. Somebody should definitely take a look at is Andre Carter from Army, and yeah, I mean he's
Yeah.
6'7",
I almost wrote him down too, actually. Yeah.
yeah, 6'7", 260. I mean he like that's you just love to be able to see a player at that size and just you want to take a shot on him, especially in the second round. Get some coaching in him. I mean he played pretty well. We had some pretty solid like rush defense grades overall, but I mean, just looking at coming from Army, so he's going to be all, buttoned up for the most part, disciplined. And I think that just kind of reading up about him, it just feels like one of them Dan Campbell guys, just kind of comes in, plays hard, plays his hair on fire. I think that also be, a good potential addition, to that defensive line for us.
Yeah. No, I second that. I watched him. I was wrote him down as kind of I don't want to call him a sleeper, but like a mid to late round guy as well.
Yeah.
No, I agree. So the last dude I wrote down was just kind of a guy that caught my eye. I watched a couple of like biggest draft sleeper videos. He was on a couple different ones. Started watching a couple minute highlights, and his tape is impressive. His name is Jordan Ferguson, defensive end from Mid Tennessee State.
Hmm.
He had this year he has one interception, 43 tackles, 9 sacks, 2 touchdowns, a forced fumble, and 58 interception return yards. So he
Love that.
yeah, no, so and he is listed at 6'3", 260. Watching his tape, he is very impressive.
Well,
Yeah, just making players all over, manhandling the offensive line. One play in particular, he just pancaked a poor running back that was trying to step in front of him and block. It was very
yeah.
just disrespectful tape, really. So it'd be interesting to see how that transitioned to more of the NFL grown man game, but very impressive stat line, and also just productive throughout the years. I wrote down freshman year 2 sacks, 7 sacks, sophomore 9 sacks as a junior, 9 sacks as a senior. So production year in and year out, getting the job done. And then this year to put it all together with forced fumble, return for a touchdown, an interception, return for a touchdown. One of 260-pound man, getting a 60-yard interception return is pretty impressive. So that's a guy I think I would, you're looking around for another, Houston type diamond in the rough at that, fifth, sixth, seventh round. I think, he's a guy you can probably look at as, maybe a little bit of magic just to make things happen. Sometimes guys are just always in the right place at the right time, and maybe he's one of them. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
I love it. I love the production, and even Mid Tennessee State. That's just these guys. They come from everywhere, and there's going to be a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if we're able to get us a good one that first round, maybe look at another cornerback or something with that that 18th pick or vice versa, however we want to play that. I still like that there's some guys out there that we can look at third, fourth, fifth round. I think if I'm not mistaken, we have quite a few late round picks too, so might be able to get one of these guys for a discount essentially, and they could be a key contributor to the team right away.
Yeah. and that's one of those things where if you front load it and do the right things with the, Jalen Carter's, Will Anderson, Hutchinson, you are these other guys makes their job a little easier to come in at those
100%.
random times and just do one job.
Right.
And so it's all part of the master plan here. Makes everybody's job easier when you're manhandling the line of scrimmage. But no, I think a lot of these guys would I wouldn't be mad at probably anybody we named drafting at the right location. I think all of these guys are pretty stout players. I
Yeah.
think a lot of us mirrored, or a lot of our players mirrored each other. So I think that shows a lot. But no, I'm excited. I think like we talked about, we have free agency coming up here.
Yeah.
They're going to get into more of these combine type drills here coming up. That's ramping up soon. So I think a lot of these things will begin to show and surface itself.
Yeah.
We can stop reading these Twitter rumors about so and so might run a 4.3 and you know and all of that stuff is kind of
Right.
it all out. But
Yeah, it'll be good because like now we kind of have this, surface level evaluation. Combine didn't matter to a certain extent, but some of that stuff it would be good to just see where guys stand, and then we'll be able to start to even analyze. Some of these guys might move up in ranks, just kind of depending on how they do. Like I'm curious to see how Jared Verse, how he like how he times and just some of that stuff and what that looks like.
yeah, whether it should mean anything or not, I think what it will mean is some of these guys that it's you know you didn't say Isaiah Frosky. Isaiah Frosky comes out with that 4.6. Everybody knows that name now. I think
Right.
that's one of the
Yeah.
I think that's one of those
Thanks.
things. Or if Will Anderson busts out a 5.2, he probably will be there at 6. So I think it's one of those things, and it might not mean a thing, but I think
Right. It can help us.
yeah, it helps separates um the stat line a little bit. This is all the extra stuff. Can whether it means anything or not, we don't really know, but it definitely it helps. I guess decipher random.
Yeah, I understand like who you want to take a chance over who like you might hold off on because it may be available later on.
Yeah, outside to take just raw athletic talent and
Right.
speed and jumping and how big you are. Obviously we agree some of it is a little odd, but it can be a bit excessive. But in general, I'm not I don't not mad at somebody having to run a 40, but
Right.
yeah, but they definitely dig in a little too deep from time to time. That's another whole nother podcast. But
Yeah.
I think yeah. You got anything else for the people?
That's all I got. Next week we're gonna look into just kind of a little bit of free agency stuff. Might kind of do like more of a miscellaneous draft. Touch on a couple other positions that may need some stuff based on free agency goes. But yeah, just looking forward to continue to dive in and see what the Lions gonna do come April.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I mean, Super Bowl just wrapped up, but the NFL season is never over. We yeah, no, so it's exciting time. And hopefully we might muster up the courage to, bring up Michigan basketball and or the Pistons here soon. We might get the courage. We'll see. But no, we'll be back at you next week.
Peace out.